I'm Amber Tresca, and this is About IBD, the podcast that knows the difference between irritable bowel syndrome and inflammatory bowel disease. I'm a medical writer and patient educator who lives with a J-pouch due to ulcerative colitis. It's my mission to educate people living with Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis about their disease and to bring awareness to the patient journey. Welcome to episode 172. When I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis at the age of 16, my first gastroenterologist told me that IBD was a disease of young people. Even all these years later, there's still not enough support for pediatric IBD patients as they navigate the healthcare system. My guest is Rachel B. Rachel was diagnosed with Crohn's disease when she was 13 years old. She began receiving infusions in order to manage the disease. Now, at 17 years old, she's a high school student and a business owner. Rachel is the founder of Infusion Hero, and she designs hoodies created especially for young patients to stay warm while receiving their infusions. Rachel takes us through how and why she began Infusion Hero. She also tells us how she manages her time and stays on track while keeping up with school, as well as making time for friends and other interests. Rachel, welcome to About IBD.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm excited to talk to you. I think you're one of the first entrepreneurs I've had on this show, so we'll get to that. But first, I want to start with an introduction. And would you let the listeners know a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Rachel. I'm a senior in high school currently. I'm 17 years old. And when I was 13 years old, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And so as a result, every 6 weeks, I get medical infusions. And because of that diagnosis, I had the idea to start my own business called Infusion Hero, where I sell these infusion hoodies with zippers along the sleeves. And that allows the nurse to have access to the patient arm and still keeps the patient warm while they're getting their infusions.
I love it. And I'll say that when I was diagnosed in the long ago, I was 16, and getting an IV was so difficult because your choices were the awful hospital gowns or like nothing. Like there was just that was it. Like you had to choose those hospital gowns, and it was really awful. We were always trying to figure something out that I could wear while I had an IV while I was an inpatient, and just nothing ever worked out. So I love that you're doing this. So first, I want to hear more about your diagnosis, because you were 13. That is so young, as I'm sure you've been told many times. But can you tell me how your symptoms started and what that was like, what you remember about that time of being diagnosed?
Yeah, so diagnosed when I was 13, I remember the first time I ever felt a symptom very distinctly in my mind. It's just kind of one of those moments that stuck with me forever. But it was Halloween night, and I was hanging out with my friends, and I was heading home. And so my friend's sister decided to drive me home. And I just remember as I was right about to get in her car, just something felt wrong. I felt extremely nauseous. I just knew in my gut that something was off, something was wrong. And so then just from that point on, ever since, I started feeling super nauseous. I was in a lot of pain. Didn't really have a lot of energy. And so I just remember something was feeling super off. I was beginning to lose a lot of weight. And whenever I'd eat anything, I'd either just throw it up or be in so intense pain. And so I wasn't really gaining or keeping any nutritions or any nutrients in me. So I got down to 55 pounds when I was first diagnosed.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I was in so much pain. It was honestly just the most painful, worst experience that I can remember in my life. And so 6 to 8 months after I first started feeling those symptoms, my mom and I were talking, and we're like, yeah, something is not right, because I'm a very athletic, very outdoorsy types of person. Like I'm always doing something. At that point in my life, I was showing livestock, so showing steers and lambs. So I'd be up every day at 6 a.m., out in the barn to do chores, and go to school, come back home, get back out in the barn. But I just remember feeling so sick that I couldn't do that. It's like it would take so much energy just to get up from my bed to go to the couch or to the bathroom. And so I remember not being able to do the things that I loved. And so we decided to go into the doctor, and we went in on a Saturday. So it was one of our family friend doctors. Went in, he kind of checked me out, and he said, yeah, you should probably head over to the ER next door. I got a CAT scan. And then he called a couple of days later and was like, I made a point with you at Primary Children's on Thursday. You should definitely head in for that. And so we went to Primary Children's. I got a scope, and then they said I had severe Crohn's disease.
Okay, so let me understand the timeline here. So it was about 6 months from when your symptoms started until you actually went and got looked at. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, and you were losing weight that whole time?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's so awful. Did you ever have any of like the hallmark symptoms that people think about? And people think about like, it gets a little personal, but we get personal on this show. Things like diarrhea, bloody stool, stuff like that. Like you said, there was nausea. Was that kind of in that? And so was nausea and the weight loss really what brought you to the doctor?
Mm-hmm. So I did have some of those hallmark symptoms, had diarrhea, had some bloody stool, but I remember like I'd be sitting in school and it was COVID at that time. And so I was wearing a mask in class and I'd have to get up and leave my class 3 or 4 times throughout the day just to throw up and just be in so much pain. So I still had diarrhea. I still had issues with that, but mainly I remember just such intense pain and then always constantly being nauseous, constantly being exhausted.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Oh, there was a lot going on, COVID and all of that at the same time, and then trying to get a diagnosis at that time. But it sounds like you had a really great family friend who got you on the right track right away. Were you surprised when they said, "I think you should go to the ER"?
I was a little, because my mom, my dad, and we went to the doctor in together on a Saturday. Like, it wasn't even his regular office hours. And when he said, yeah, go over to the ER, we just kind of all looked at each other and made that
face. Oh my gosh. Do you think he had a suspicion, or what do you think prompted him to send you to the ER?
I think he knew. I think he had some sort of idea that something was going on. And he's been a phenomenal doctor. Like him and my dad, they used to go mountain biking together, so they're old buddies. And he's always been our main primary doctor, and he's just a great guy. And so he was really looking out for my best interests. And I think he had some sort of suspicion. And especially when he called and said, go to a primary children's hospital, that's a very serious, very intense thing. I mean, that's like it's a great, phenomenal hospital, but you only go there really when you're super, super sick. And so when we got that call, I just remember feeling really worried and kind of panicked about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. You got the diagnosis of Crohn's disease, and then you got put on a medication that needs to be infused, which is true of a lot of people with IBD. And what have these infusions been like for you over the years? And I'm asking because I've interviewed a few other people who were in high school when they were diagnosed and trying to deal with all of this, and how it is that you are missing school, what you think about when you talk to your friends about it, what do they talk to you about? So what has that experience been like for you these past 4 years?
So when I was first diagnosed, I got first infusion, and then a week later got the next, 2 weeks later got the next, and then 4 weeks, and then 8 weeks. And so we stuck me on an 8-week program, but that wasn't working super great, so cut back to 4 weeks. And then about a year ago, I got bumped up to 6 weeks now, and so I've been kind of steady on that. It's really worked well for me. My symptoms are basically non-existent now, which I'm so, so happy about. But during that time, I definitely missed a lot of school, especially when you first start getting infusions. There's 6 to 8 hour ordeals. It definitely takes a long time. Mm-hmm. Now I'm on rapid infusions, and I actually have a nurse that comes to me, so I get home infusions, which it's very nice, very great. Helpful for sure, especially with a busy schedule and being in high school.
Yeah.
As far as like what I tell my friends, when I was first diagnosed, it was kind of difficult to talk about because you're 13 years old. That's such an awkward age, no matter what. In middle school, you don't really be like, oh yeah, I'm having issues with this. And so it was very awkward at first, but I've had some great friends that have been there. And especially since I started Infusion Hero, I've had friends that always had my back, always been in support. I've had some friends come to my infusions because I've had home infusions. And so it's just been great to have that support and them on my side. And fortunately, because I get those home infusions, I don't have to miss as much school, which is very, very nice.
Oh, that's fantastic. Because even for myself, I don't know how I would work that out with having to put work and family life aside. It can eat up your whole day getting these infusions. So you saw the need for the hoodies. You designed them. How do you go about that? Because I just have no idea, like how you have this idea and you turn it into an actual product. Can you let me know how did that all work?
So I had the idea and I just kind of sketched it out on a piece of paper. I sketched out a couple of different designs and ideas. I'd seen a hoodie just on some website somewhere, an ad had popped up or something where it had a different kangaroo pocket. And so there was like a different pattern, different design from the actual base hoodie. And I thought that was a really cool concept. And so I wanted to have that be a part of my hoodies. And then with the zippers on the sleeve, right, just allowing for that access. I was always super, super cold during my infusions. So I typically wear hoodies. I'd have to roll up the sleeves, and especially when the nurse would place the blood pressure cuff, like you have to roll it all the way up there.
All the way up.
It's just so uncomfortable. So I had that idea. I kind of sketched it out, and then I went to a local company in Ogden called All in Stitches, and they really helped me with that first idea, adding on a couple of extra elements, like there's the embroidery of the character above the zipper on the shoulder there. So they helped me figure everything out with that. But when I first had the idea, it was just a single tab zipper. And so it's like you'd unzip and then zip it back up one way, which it was fine if you had the IV placed just in the crook of your elbow. But if it was placed anywhere in your forearm or in your hand, it made it kind of difficult because then your arm was still exposed. And so from making that very first prototype, we decided to have it be double tab zippers. So then you could close the zipper around the IV tube.
So
smart. Worked with All in Stitches for that. They were extremely helpful. I owe them a huge debt of gratitude, but they just didn't really have the capacity to produce these hoodies on a bulk order that I wanted to do. And so I went to a different designer, Courtney Starr, and she's been phenomenal throughout this process. She's helped me find the manufacturer. She's coordinated everything. She's helped me with coming up with different designs. And then I showed her the prototype that I've made with All in Stitches. I showed her some of my sketches, and then she made something called a tech pack, which is a document that you give to the factory and the manufacturer, and that's what they actually look for. It has all the specs, it has all the color and everything that you need to put into what goes into making that hoodie, essentially.
Okay. It sounds like there were a lot of choices also to make along the way. Like, how do you make those choices? How do you think ahead? And, in terms of, you talked about the zipper, which makes sense, but there are so many other things that you have to incorporate when you're doing something like this. I imagine colors, but the fabric and the weight of the fabric and all of that. Are folks helping you make those decisions, or how are you doing that?
Yes, definitely. And it's been trial and error mostly for some of that. I've made roughly 8 different samples of these hoodies that I've gone through trying to finalize the designs. And it's like finding the exact fabric that would match was difficult because with the kangaroo pocket being a different design, we were debating, should we just do sublimation onto a different fabric? Would that sublimate well on the same fabric as the base hoodie? So my designer, she was able to figure that out, work with the factory, and we have the exact same fabric for the kangaroo pocket as the base hoodie. And it's just sublimated on there with the design, and it because I didn't want it to look tacky, I didn't want it to peel off or anything, but they did a really good job. It looks very professional, very nice. And also with that, with having the zipper in the arm, that can kind of rub against your arm as you're getting the infusions. I noticed that with some of the first prototypes. And so along the inside there, we took the same fabric that we have on the kangaroo pocket and put just a little slip of that fabric to go on the inside next to the zipper. So then it's just like a little bit of fabric there to present it from rubbing against the patient's arm. And so that was an additional design idea that my designer had, which was super, super helpful. Definitely one of the more unique features of the hoodie. So a lot of it was just trial and error, trying to figure out, what the content should be. Initially, we started with a Gildan hoodie, and then we would just retrofit that. And so the factory would take the arms off, sew the zipper in, but that took too much time. It was a little bit too much money. And so then we came up with my own content mix where it's fox fleece, cotton, and polyester. And when you look at the hoodies, like they look light, but when you pick them up, they're heavy in a good way, like kind of a heavy weighted animal or like a weighted blanket that you would wear. And so it's just like super warm, super heavy, but super soft and comfortable on the inside as well. And so a lot of it just trial and error before we finally decided what would be the perfect design, because I put a lot of time and money into this, and I want to make sure that it was the perfect product that could provide a solution to all these issues.
Absolutely. I know exactly what you're talking about with the zipper, especially if it gets cold and then it's against your skin.
Definitely.
That's not the most fun. What about washing? Because it's just occurring to me right now, I know after I go for almost anything, any kind of a procedure, whatever, one of the first things I do when I come home, and maybe it's because I'm a little bit phobic about germs, is that I'll change my clothes, of course, and then I will wash, whatever I was wearing, especially if I was at a hospital or something like that. So how did you think about that, about the fact that people are going to want to wash these maybe in hot temperatures because you were wearing them at a hospital to get an infusion.
Yeah, and absolutely. You can wash them. You should be able to just throw them in your washer, put it in the dryer, no problem, and just kind of throw it in with your regular laundry. You could wash it on your own, but really it should be washer safe, dryer safe, completely good for that.
Oh my gosh, that's so perfect. Up next, Rachel gives advice on running a business while also managing an IBD. I'm wondering, Rachel, because you, I'm sure, have gotten lots of reactions similar to mine, probably to Infusion Hero hoodies. And do you have any stories from patients or any thoughts from patients about your hoodies?
So I had a friend that was actually recently diagnosed with some form of arthritis. And so she's recently started getting her infusions. And so she took one of my sample hoodies up to Primary Children's when she was getting her first one and then got to wear it there. She took some pictures I've been posting on social media and stuff. And she loved it. It was super warm. It was great for her to wear. She had a couple of feedback with some of the specs that I implemented with my next sample. And then, of course, the nurses there at Primary Children's were able to actually see the product because where I get my infusions at home now, I don't really have a chance to take them out into different infusion settings. And so she was able to take that out, and she said, the nurses said nothing but good things. I've also taken these hoodies into different hospitals and shown them to different patients, and mainly I've just gotten positive feedback from there. People have been like, oh, what about this idea, or some ideas for future designs, and I'll happily take any input, but for the most part, it's been just completely positive feedback.
That's actually kind of funny. Receiving your infusions at home must be so convenient and so much more comfortable. But if you were getting your infusions in a hospital, you would be wearing one of your hoodies.
Definitely.
So this has been such a journey. I knew that a lot was going into your thought process as you've designed these hoodies and taken feedback and gone back to the drawing board so many times. I can't imagine going through this process. You are so young, just because it is so much to think about. And you are also dealing with a complicated chronic illness that takes up a lot of your time. What kind of advice do you have for other teenagers who have ideas like yours? Because I think also, well, you can tell me, but sometimes I think people don't listen to teenagers as much as they should. So do you have any advice in that regard for other people that might want to start on an entrepreneurial journey when they're in their teens?
Definitely. I would say, especially if you have a chronic illness, make sure that you have everything prioritized. Like for me, I would always have to make sure that I'm physically healthy and able to put time and work and effort into this, because if you're really passionate about an idea, you're going to want to work on it 24/7 and never take any breaks. But you do have to make sure that you stop and take care of your body and make sure that, you know, your illness is under control before you can really invest 100% of yourself into this business. And so I definitely say that. I think for teenagers, there's actually a lot of opportunities out there where you can get business advice from people and you can get mentors in the community. I've been involved in DECA for 3 years, which is a business club. I'm DECA president this year. And I've had just a phenomenal advisor at my school that's helped me out the whole entire time. And this is what I've done my DECA business plans on for the past 2 years. I've qualified for ICDC, which is our International Career Development Conference, so kind of our nationals there. And it's a great opportunity because through DECA, I've been able to compete in different business competitions where I've won cash prizes that I've invested into Infusion Hero. I've also had the chance to network with judges that are marketing professionals in the business world. And so they've given me feedback and advice on how to grow my business and given me connections. And so if you can find a business club or organization or something out there, definitely become a part of that, because you're going to need a support group. You're going to need community. You're also going to need to be able to do the work on your own and put in your own effort. But having people there with extra advice, kind of a mentor to help you along, is super, super beneficial. So I'd say definitely join something like that.
Well, that's so amazing. I'm glad you've had so much support along the way to get this done. And because I'm a mom, I have teenagers. I have a 15-year-old daughter and a 17-year-old son, and my kids are in high school. They are super busy. And I have to ask you, how are you balancing this? How are you balancing school, your health, running a business? I'm sure you have other interests besides just running Infusion Hero. So how are you managing all this? How do you make time to care for yourself and also have fun? Because you are a teenager and you should be having some fun.
It's definitely a balance, and some days things aren't quite as balanced as they should be. But for me, I'm a very organized person, and so at the beginning of the week, I'll sit down and I'll make a list of all the homework assignments that I have to do and everything I need to get done that week. I'm taking all AP or concurrent enrollment classes, so basically my whole entire course load this year is just college level classes, and so I really have to make sure that I'm prioritizing that to get these assignments done. But also, Infusion Hero is my number one priority. I'm involved in a variety of different things, DECA, FBLA, and wrestling, but Infusion Hero is definitely my number one. And so I'll make a list of homework, make a list of things I want to do with Infusion Hero that week, and then just kind of schedule everything out. I'm very type A like that. I have 4 different calendars that I go off of just to keep everything organized. And so definitely a balance and make sure that I get the things that are most important done. But also, I'm a senior in high school, right? And so this is kind of my last year with my friends before we all go our different ways. And so I still want to make sure to have fun and have time with friends. And so I make sure that I schedule in at least, once a week where I can do something with friends. And it's just kind of a balance of figuring everything out. Some weeks I'm more focused on something else and I have to put Infusion Hero on the back burner for something, or other weeks I just completely 100% all of my time to Infusion Hero, and maybe I miss doing a homework assignment or something. And so just kind of prioritizing what's most important for you in that moment is something that I tend to do.
Are your teachers aware that you're literally running a business while you're going to school?
They are, yes, most of them are. And they've given me some pretty positive feedback and some support, which I definitely appreciate. And they've been lenient when I said, oh, I'm in the hospital or something. Can I be late on this assignment? Or sorry, I was gone. I missed because I was having a meeting for Infusion Hero. Can I do a little extra work to make this up? And they're always super, super supportive, super flexible. And so that's something I really appreciate.
That's something that I always tell my kids, is that being transparent and forming those relationships with your teachers, and then, when you get to college with your professors, that can really go a long way because they want to know what you're up to. And, obviously they're teachers. They like kids, right? Otherwise they wouldn't be teaching high school, I would hope. So they're going to want to, so they're going to want to support you. So if you let them know what's going on, that goes a long way. And it sounds like that's the approach that you've taken as well.
Definitely.
All right. So I have to ask you about the Infusion Hero Instagram a little bit, because I'm really into this series that you're doing that you called Cooking with Crohn's.
Yes.
I'm so interested because, all right, so one of your recent ones was you posted a recipe for these crispy carrot fries, okay? And so I have to tell you, Rachel, I 100% saw your post and then that night totally made those for dinner because we're in winter, something about making some root vegetables in the oven in the winter. I just really wanted it. And it was just so funny that it worked out that way. So I want to know a little bit more about this, about how you thought about doing it. How you come up with the time to make these recipes and then post it all on your Instagram. I know that that's not easy. And how do you decide the recipes to make?
So the Crohn's and Colitis website has a gut-friendly recipe list. There's 500 or something various recipes on there. And so Sunday is when I kind of sit down and plan everything out. And that's when I spend most of that day just making content and scheduling it out for the week. And so I'll sit down and I'll just kind of scroll through the recipes. And mainly it's whatever ingredients I have at my house really is what I'll make. But yeah, then every Sunday typically I'll film it. And if I don't have time that day, then I'll find some sort of wiggle room in my schedule to make those videos. It typically takes an hour from start to finish to film everything and then edit it. And then, of course, taste test the food that I make and everything. But yeah, I love that food series. I just kind of had the idea one day and I'm like, well, I'm very fortunate. I can pretty much eat whatever I want, but I still kind of tend to eat super healthy, especially, with wrestling and everything and, being so active. I want to make sure that I'm eating right. But I luckily can eat anything I want. And so I've been kind of curious because I've had friends that have Crohn's disease that can basically eat cardboard, right? Pretty much nothing out there. And so looking at these different recipes kind of gave me a chance to see what different types of food they can have. And also, I love to cook. I love to explore different hobbies. And so it's been kind of a fun way to experiment a little bit more and have some new recipes that I'm able to cook. And, Crohn's and Clyde's website has some great resources on there. Honestly, all the recipes I've cooked have been pretty good. I think the crispy carrot fries have been my favorite that I've made so far.
Really? I was going to ask you which your favorite was. That's so funny. I did really like them too. And it was just kind of inspiration. It was like kind of, I don't know what I'm going to do tonight. And then I saw what you did with it, and it gave me the idea. And I do love a carrot. So luckily I can eat them as well. All right. I have to ask you something else, because real briefly, you mentioned that you go out to the barn and do your chores. Take me through this. What kind of animals do you have? What are your chores? Are you doing this every day in addition to everything else that you're doing?
So unfortunately, last year was my last year showing livestock. I started showing when I was 8 years old, and then at the fair in this August, that was my last time showing, just because I wasn't sure what I'm going to do for college or my plans after high school, and so I wasn't sure if I was going to be around for senior year to show one more year. But I've shown lambs, hogs, and steers for the past 9 years. I've shown lambs for the full 9. Hogs I only showed for 2 years, so I didn't show them for super long. And then for steers, I've shown them for about 6 years. And so what that would entail is steers, you get them in the beginning of September-ish, kind of into October, and then you'll have them all year round until August at the fair. And so you get them when they're about 500 pounds. We typically buy them from Hat Ranch Show Cattle, which anybody that shows livestock they have some phenomenal steers, phenomenal cattle there. And so we go pick them up and then halter break them throughout the next couple months, take them to different jackpots throughout the state of Utah and some in Idaho and Wyoming in different locations, and then get them ready to show at the fair and then sell them at the fair. And then same for lambs. Purchase lambs they kind of around spring break time, kind of in April-ish, and then raise them throughout the summer, and then you sell them at the fair. And that's kind of been classified as my summer job, really. That's where I've earned money, and actually I've been able to take that money and invest it into starting Infusion Hero. But typically a day out in the barn, get up at 5 or 6 depending on the schedule, go out there, feed them, and then go to school, have things after school, and then whenever I get home, go out there and practice showmanship. So when you're showing livestock, there's 2 different ways that you're judged. You're judged in market, which is for the quality of the animal, and then you're judged in showmanship, which is how will you and the animal work together, if you can get them to set up and do what you want and make sure they're presentable for the judge. And so showmanship is just kind of practicing, like for lambs, teaching them how to set up and how to brace, which is essentially just flexing their muscles. Then for steers, once again, teaching them how to set up, make sure their feet placement is correct. And so just go out there, practice that for 30 minutes to an hour, make sure to clean the barn, have hay and grain out there, feed them again. When it gets warm in summer, we're able to wash them more frequently. Typically don't want to wash them as much in winter because we don't have an indoor barn. We just kind of have a half open enclosure there. So just want to make sure they don't get pneumonia or anything like that. And so it's something that I loved. It, basically raised me, did it for 9 years of my life. And honestly, I really do miss it this year. It's been a great thing. It's taught me so many important lessons. And really, I think it's been the foundation for how Infusion Hero got started with what I learned through that.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Absolutely. Rachel, you're fascinating. I just have to say that. You are a fascinating person. I do, though, before we tell everybody where we can find you and find Infusion Hero, for anyone who's just listening and not watching, Rachel has 2 of her hoodies behind her. Could you just briefly describe them for me? Tell me the colors, for instance, and the characters that you have on them.
Absolutely. So my main hoodie, it's a Carolina blue hoodie. It says Infusion Hero embroidery across the chest with the little butterfly logo on it. And then the kangaroo pocket for that it's a white background for the kangaroo pocket, and then it has different purple butterflies across it. And then I have the 2 zippers in each of this, like 1 zipper per sleeve. And then above that zipper, there's embroidery of the little butterfly on the Infusion Hero butterfly hoodie design. And then the other one behind me is the Infusion Ninja design. So I actually have that one in a red and a black colorway, but the one behind me today is just red right now. So it's a red base, and it says Infusion Ninja embroidery across the front with a little ninja logo next to it. And the kangaroo pocket is black, and it has different throwing stars and a ninja across it. And the same one with the black Infusion Ninja design, it's a black hoodie, and then it has a red background for the kangaroo pocket, and then the same thing with throwing stars and the ninja on there as well.
It is Very cool. I'm so glad that you're doing this. You're going to help so many kids who are living through things like Crohn's disease or other conditions for which they need to receive infusions or have an IV, and they can have these great hoodies. So I want to make sure that people can find you, can connect with you, can learn more about Infusion Hero. Can you tell me, how can the IBD community support you, support your business, and how can we spread the word about Infusion Hero?
So my website is www.infusionhero.com, and there's links on that website to all of my social media accounts. I'm on Instagram, on Facebook, and on TikTok, and my handle for Instagram is at infusion_hero. And so ways to support, if you just want to follow along any of those social media accounts, if you repost any content that resonates with you, if you have any ideas, please DM me or send me a message and let me know for, future hoodies I can make or future designs that you have, or just if you want to share your story with me, there's a site on the website where you can submit a picture of you and hopefully a picture of you wearing an infusion hoodie so that I can post that and kind of share your story. My pre-orders are open right now, and I don't expect full inventory to arrive until roughly April-ish, but you're more than welcome to pre-order on the website at Infusion Hero, and as soon as that inventory gets here, I'll ship it out as soon as I can.
Oh my gosh. So college plans, you have anything set forth yet?
I'm not 100% sure with where I want to go. There's a couple colleges I'm still choosing between, but I want to double major in economics and accounting just because economics seems super interesting to me. And then accounting, those two skills just combined would be super beneficial with Infusion Hero helping to run it and just an important skill to learn. But yeah, I'm looking forward. I love learning, love gaining new information. I'm excited for college, kind of a chance to get out there, see the world. I'm a little scared, a little nervous, but mainly excited and looking forward to the future.
Yeah. Yeah. My son is a senior also, and he's still, weighing his options a little bit as well in this, late winter period before we finally have to make a choice. It's definitely, I remember it as being really, yes, as you described it, a little nerve-wracking because you're entering into something that you don't have any framework for it yet, but super exciting. And you've already got so much behind you with all of the work that you've done, and clearly you know how to put together a schedule. You are way more regimented than myself and many, many adults that I know. So that is going to serve you well in the long term. And Rachel, it has been fantastic to get to know you through working with you to create this episode. And I am so excited that you have created Infusion Hero and that you are finding success with it. And I really appreciate everything that you're doing for the IBD community, because this, obviously, as you're finding out, this is truly, truly needed. And it is really so wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Hey, super listener. Thanks to Rachel B. of Infusion Hero for creating this episode with me. The infusion hoodies she designed are available for order at infusionhero.com. You can also follow her on Instagram, Facebook, and the TikTok as Infusion Hero. I didn't ask Rachel about this when I had her on the line, but maybe we can find out if she'll ever offer a hoodie in purple. If so, I'll be the first one in line to order one. As always, links to a written transcript, everyone's social media handles, and more information on the topics we discussed is in the show notes and on my episode 172 page on aboutibd.com. Thanks for listening. And remember, until next time, I want you to know more about IBD. About IBD is a production of Mal and Tal Enterprises. It is edited, written, produced, and directed by me, Amber Tresca. Mix and sound design is by Mac Cooney. Theme music is from Cooney Studio.